Bye weeks, hamstring injuries,
Yeah.
concussions. Welcome to the week 7 waiver wire. You're dealing with injuries. Maybe you can't play DJ Moore and CeeDee Lamb this week. Maybe you have Dak Prescott and you're dropping him anyway after that 3-point stinker. Regardless, your team needs some help. And on today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we have 15 players on the week 7 waiver wire that will make your team better. I'm your host, Sean. I'm joined by my good friend, my fellow co-host, and my fellow knower of ball, Aidan Haller. It is Aidan 7:17 a.m. Tuesday Pacific Standard Time. We usually record these Monday afternoons. Life got in the way. So this is an early morning ball talking session. How we doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Sean. Yeah, like you said, it is first thing in the morning here. Did not have to sweat any matchups last night for the first time all season. So I either already wrapped up a couple wins or kind of got my ass kicked and got to put the phone down. So it was refreshing to enjoy a stress-free Monday. Didn't catch much of the game last night, but yeah, it seemed like a pretty good one.
Yeah, I did not either. I don't know if the listeners know, but I'm getting married next week. So it's been just full steam ahead with marriage stuff. It's been a grind, man. But speaking of marriages, before we dive into the waiver wire real quick, one of the beauties of recording on a Tuesday is some news just broke. And the happy couple, Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers, we're back together once again. I'm sure we'll get Keegan's take on this later in the week. Before we dive in, very quickly, 30 seconds. What do you think of this trade? What do you think the fantasy impact will be?
Yeah, good for him. Smart for the Raiders to probably just get out of Davante. It's going to end up probably being a second round pick from what it looks like. It's conditional. I don't know the exact terms. Got to assume he needs to play in, X of the remaining, what is it called? 13 games. I think maybe even less than that. As far as the Jets, I don't really know what to say. As a Garrett Wilson owner, I don't love it. I don't love it. Obviously, Davante is going to start getting a ton of targets. Maybe it opens them up though. So we're going to see. That offense just hasn't made a ton of sense in general to me. I think on a week-to-week basis, it's just been pretty confusing. But what's your take on this? Anyone's stock up or down?
Lazard's is completely gone. So if you have for some reason drafted Lazard in best ball, or you've been scraping by like in a 2-flex league and like he was your Cooper Kupp or Shee Rice replacement.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You enjoyed it. It was a pretty sweet run if you just stuck Lazard in your lineup. Honestly, the waiver wire, he's been like a top 20 guy this year.
Yeah, he scored again last night on the Hail Mary.
So yeah,
I think he's got like 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think his stock is way down. I think Brock Bowers' stock is way up. It was already up, but on the Raiders side. And then Jacoby's an interesting kind of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type. I would say Trey Tucker, but Trey Tucker did not have a point last week. He had a goose egg, so
it's not great.
Yeah, I don't really know. The Raiders are kind of a trash offense. Alexander Mattison remains interesting with Zamir White out, but I'd say Brock Bowers is the biggest winner, and the biggest loser of this trade is Allen Lazard. In terms of Garrett Wilson, they've supported 2 back-to-back pretty big weeks from 2 receivers. So I think it's possible to have both Wilson and Adams be good. But
that'd be ideal. I don't
know. All right. We'll have plenty of time to dissect this on the ranking show later in the week. If you are new to our waiver wire episodes, they're pretty straightforward. We've got 15 priority ads across running backs, receivers, QBs, and tight ends. We start with running backs, we go to receivers, and then we end the show with the onesies, the QBs, and tight ends. Before we do that, though, we usually break down the injuries that happened in week 6, just to give you an understanding of players that you have on your team that you may be needing to find other options for if they were to miss time. But before we do that, Aidan, I'm sure this is somebody's first time discovering our channel, right? YouTube suggested our video. They decided to click on the thumbnail. They're like, who do I need to add this week for my team? They're listening for the first time. They don't necessarily know what to do. If you are that person, Aidan, if they're a first-time listener, what should they do?
Yeah, kick up your feet. It's probably sometime during your workday right now, maybe a little post-workday workout at this point. Kick up your feet, enjoy the show. We've got a handful of different guys covering all the main positions. No kickers and defenses for you sickos out there. So you're not going to find those here this week. But yeah, feel free to skip around if you want. We've got a handful of different guys, some under the radar guys, some more no-name guys. So enjoy the show. If you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you feel. But we're happy to have you here. Give us a chance and let us know what you think.
Early morning. I think you still brought it. I think you still brought it.
I still got
you
it.
Still got it.
I still got it.
Sun's not even out yet. It's just gray right now, and you still got it. Okay, we're going to start things quickly off here with injuries. I'll start with the first one, a notable one. The rookie wide receiver with the Arizona Cardinals, Marvin Harrison, who's had kind of an up and down so-so start to his career, leaves this game early in the first quarter with a concussion. It looked like a nasty concussion, too. He got hit, stood up, fell back down.
That was gross.
He got pulled from the game. So concussion protocol typically states you get concussed, you miss a week at a minimum. The only guy that I've seen come back faster is Brock Purdy, shout out. But he is probably going to miss next week. So if you have Trey McBride, it's going to be a fun week. Michael Wilson, he's going to be playable. Greg Dortch, do you get a little frisky?
Greg Dortch.
The Dortcher chamber?
Yeah, I think both of those wideouts are on the menu this week. But yeah, Trey McBride's the obvious beneficiary here. We're probably looking at double-digit targets.
Another concussion here, Chris Olave. He was a non-participant on Monday's estimated practice report. They're playing Thursday night against the Broncos. There's basically a 0% chance he's going to play.
0% chance.
This is now Olave's third concussion in 3 years. So, and whenever he gets concussed, it is nasty. He gets popped. I don't know how this was a legal hit. He got hit helmet to helmet straight in the head.
Yeah, like spear.
I don't. And he fumbled too. I lost a matchup because of this -0.5. It's been a rough year for Chris. It's not getting any better. If you're a Saints wide receiver bag holder, Rashid Shaheed is getting his knee checked out. He was a non-participant on Monday's estimated practice, according to Nick Underhill. I think he's getting an MRI, right? I think he already has an MRI, but it sounds like this is going to be a week-to-week injury, and they are not ruling out the IR with Rashid Shaheed. Do you have any read on this injury at all and what it could be?
Yeah, I thought I read that it was pretty serious. Yeah, again, if you've been a Shaheed bag holder as well, I'm expecting pretty bad here. Expect like at least 4 weeks potentially the rest of your fantasy season. We're already in week 7, so 4 weeks takes you pretty much right on the doorstep of fantasy playoffs. Got to ramp back up. Unfortunately, I don't know how much more Rashid Shaheed we're going to see this year.
Absolutely brutal. I have a dynasty team of Nico Collins, Rashid Rice, Rashid Shaheed, and AJ Brown. All right, moving on here to our
this one's a bummer.
Our next guy is Jerome Ford. Came up lame with a hamstring injury. It is considered week to week. Nick Chubb is expected back. So the Jerome Ford season is
borderline over.
Yeah, I mean, week 10 bye, you got to think he's back by at least week 11.
So. Yeah, this sucks. If you're a Nick Chubb owner, that's pretty exciting. You know, it's just him and Deontay Foreman now. So, but yeah, we were pretty high on Jerome Ford, and it's hasn't really come to fruition. It's very large in part to Deshaun Watson being complete garbage. But yeah, bummer for Ford drafters.
And just when you thought the Travis Etienne season couldn't get any worse, it hit a rock bottom. In week 6, he gets 3 carries, injured his hamstring. He is now considered week to week. Are you kidding? They don't have their bye week in week 8. Aren't they in London for 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. I mean, he's not playing week 7. You probably get him week 9, week 10, Etienne?
I don't know. I would be surprised in some leagues if people get impatient and drop him. He's going to be out a couple of weeks, and he's not been that great.
He's going to be a free agent next year. He should leave. I think he's still good.
He should leave. Yeah, I agree. I think that whole offense is awful. Doug Peterson should get fired. Trevor is whatever. Yeah, he'll probably get out of there. But we'll see.
I mean, if you blew that fab on Tank last week, but then Tank barely played, they gave Dernis Johnson all the carries. So I mean,
I don't know. Yeah,
not rational coaching there.
Yeah.
When you thought the run out for Tony Pollard couldn't get any better this year, Tyjae Spears injures his hamstring. I had this game up. I was watching it. Got Red Zone. I saw Tyjae probably all of his carries, and I think he came up limping on every single carry. I don't know what was going on with him, but he is week to week now. The hamstring injury, have to imagine we don't see him till week 9, week 10. This is starting to shape up to be a lost season here for Tyjae Spears. He's borderline droppable at this point.
Yeah, shout out Tony Pollard owners. That was kind of where I leaned all off season. So obviously you don't wish for injuries, but yeah, we're looking at like a bulk of the touches going forward for Tony.
Every single season, there's usually a guy on the waiver wire where you kind of have to risk it all, right? We had Puka last year. This year we had Dontayvion Wicks, and
What a face plant.
for every
What
Puka, there's a Dontayvion Wicks, and he makes an astounding catch. He had 3 carries. I mean, he had 3 receptions very early. They were force feeding him again, and it wasn't really working. And the targets are bad. I don't really get that. None of his targets are catchable.
They're not close.
But overall, he hurts his shoulder. He's considered week to week. They have their bye week, week 9. He could be back week 11. I'm not quite sure. If
you might be able to drop him, which sucks, dude.
I would hold him if you have an IR spot.
Watson came back way too fast, and the run out the last 2 weeks really could not have been worse, plus the injury.
But then the thesis remains: you see Doubs catch 2 touchdowns, you see Watson catch a touchdown. Like,
it could be him anyway.
There's plenty on the bone in this offense for Wicks, but you are not getting an instant contributor to the offense like you thought you were when you brought him on. I'd stick him in the IR. Don't drop Wicks. Quentin Johnston, he got banged up in this game with an ankle injury. I don't know the status. Did he come back in the game?
I didn't see him come back, but I didn't watch a ton of that game. Fully transparently, that was not a game I had a ton of interest in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to know where this goes with QJ, but he did get peppered with targets when he was in the game, especially at the beginning. But he limped off, and I think he came back in, but I'm pretty sure it was an ankle injury for QJ.
Yeah, it was an ankle.
He still continues to get a ton of first read looks. So someone probably dropped him. You could get a little shifty and pick him up for basically no fab, but this offense is just so weird. It's really hard to get excited about anyone in this offense.
They just don't pass enough.
They did this week. They threw the piss out of the ball this week.
Yeah, that's fair.
Dallas Goedert hamstring. Another Eagle pass catcher gets hurt. Brutal.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but I guess as AJ Brown and Smitty owners, like, that's like it's going to be a 2-man funnel in that passing attack, which is probably exactly what you want. So definitely get well soon, Dallas. When's their? They just came off of it. Jesus, yeah, he's going to be out a couple of weeks. So it was early too. It was like the first drive of the game, I think.
Yeah, another J Lee goose egg. Rough run out for J Lee. Rough run out for our brother J Lee. Okay.
Yeah, tough week of injuries. Lots of hammies, couple concussions, then a couple of these mixed.
The mid game injuries too. I know I'm not breaking any news, but those are absolutely brutal. All things considered.
Yeah, I've been getting peppered. I got Rice, Wicks. It's been all bad.
All right, we're gonna kick things off here with running backs on the waiver wire. Our first play that we were picking up here, I'd say probably our priority waiver ad. If he's still out there, he's available in 45% of leagues right now. That is none other than running back Tyrone Tracy here for the New York Giants. We highlighted him last week, and Aidan, he delivered the goods for the second week in a row. The usage was kind of everything you want to see. They basically said, hey, we get it, Eric Gray. Thank you for your service, but we're going to roll with the promising young rookie out of Purdue in Tyrone Tracy. And you got to be pretty stoked. If you picked him up, I didn't have to give up a single fab bid when I picked him up. I think I picked him up like on a Friday, a week or two ago. And what he gave you last week was honestly one of the best roles in fantasy in terms of utilization. 84% of the snaps, 60% of the rush attempts, 70% of the routes, 18% of the targets, 19% targets per route run. I mean, the man rushed for 50 yards. He had 57 receiving yards and 6 catches and a touchdown. What an impressive performance from Tracy. And you were high on Tracy coming into the season. Any thoughts on Tracy versus Singletary rest of season? How should people approach Tracy on the wire?
Yeah, I'd be shocked if this isn't like a 50-50 split, at least in terms of in Tracy's favor going forward. This is, pretty optimal for him in terms of the role and the production that we've seen from him in Singletary's absence. So by no means do I think he's putting Singletary on the bench. It's something you mentioned last week. I think Brian Dable really likes Devin Singletary. The guy just falls forward and is a pretty gritty runner, but Tyrone Tracy's legit. So pretty exciting for them. The Giants in a bit of a weird season are kind of uncovering some like fun players. Neighbor's been a great development. Wandale's been pretty nice. You've now got a young Tyrone Tracy. So, I don't think this is a winning season by them, but they're starting to flip over some kind of diamonds in the rough on that team.
Again, it's a kind of fun offense. Like they have decent players. Dable's a good play caller. I will say that they really do lose their punch without Neighbors, though. They need to get him back. I know that's stating the obvious, but I don't know. What do you think for Tracy in terms of fab bid? I think fab bid, we had him at like 20-25%. I think we just have to hold true, right? Like,
yeah, that's where I think, I'm looking now. We had him at, I got 15 to 25 on my sheet. I think that's about what we said. I'd be willing to. He's the best running back on your waiver wire. So I'd even say a little more, unless you've got Tank Bigsby out there, which
I doubt.
If Tank Bigsby's still on your wire, your wire, man. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, I doubt it. But yeah, that's a good call out. I think 20 to 25% on Tyrone Tracy makes sense. I don't know if we can expect 17 plus point per game outings when Singletary comes back, but definitely something worth monitoring.
The receiving role was a big surprise. If we're getting 5 targets a game, man, I don't know, 10 plus points every week is for sure on the menu.
As a Scamdale starter, it was rough. Those used to be Scams targets, but good for you, Tyrone. Good for you. The second guy that we are picking up this week is Kimani Vidal. First touch to the crib, house call. That was insane. What a dime from Justin Herbert.
What a dime. Dude, that was right on the money, dude.
Amazing hands. I've been talking about Vidal for like 6 months now, like on this podcast.
We've been waiting.
Pretty sweet. First touch to the crib. Only 4 carries in this one, 11 yards, two targets, 2 receptions, 40 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, the 40-yard touchdown saves his day here, but Gus Edwards is now on IR. So his season is off the rails with whatever knee injury he's had.
It's over for Gus Edwards.
And we are now 1 injury away from Kimani Vidal having a bonkers role in fantasy football. Bonkers.
They were really the only 2 running backs that had any role last week.
Yeah, I mean, Hassan Haskins saw 4% of the snaps, 5% of the attempts, but Vidal really here in a basically 75-25 split with J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins was 68% of the attempts, Vidal with 11. Vidal was 7% of the targets, J.K. Dobbins 7%. Vidal, though, with a really promising 20% targets per route run, Dobbins with 14. Look, this offense is kind of weird, but it's still Justin Herbert, and it's still Greg Roman. They want to run the ball. Vidal was a really promising prospect, in my opinion, out of Troy this year. Incredible run blocker, good pass catcher, just runs the rock how you want to see running backs run the rock, and he's just built like a fire hydrant, man. I just think he's a good running back. And though Dobbins' story has been amazing, you close your eyes and it doesn't take you too long to imagine how his season goes off the rails. So Vidal is not someone you're going to be starting next week, but Vidal is 1 injury away from really having just an incredible role in fantasy. Any thoughts on how people should approach Vidal? Any disagreement there? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's spot on. Like, this is a stash for sure at the moment. There's really no way that you can play him right now, given what we're seeing on a week-to-week basis from J.K. Dobbins. But you look at the Gus Edwards injury, there's really no one else in that room at this point, which is awesome. You're firmly the running back too. And given J.K. Dobbins' injury history, definitely an older back, has a bit of a laundry list of injuries himself. Yeah, 1 injury, and we're talking, 20 touches a game with Kimani Vidal. So really exciting here. Don't go nuts. I don't know, 5?
Yeah, 5 to 10. I picked him up in a couple leagues for free, but when the Gus Edwards news came out, so
if you're a Dobbins owner, you definitely
got to prioritize Vidal. I'd say
as a Dobbins owner, I'd go even a little more.
5 to 10%. I wouldn't get too crazy, but like if Dobbins gets hurt, he's gonna be like a 30% guy. That's just where he's gonna be. So try and get ahead of it now. I don't think it'll be super competitive. Similar to this guy, Blake Corum's our 3rd running back we want to highlight here. I don't think it's going to be very competitive. Maybe the Kyron guy gets a little aggressive in your league, but I think Corum has to be owned. He probably got dropped right before or after the bye. His usage picked up in week 5, though, before the bye week. And what we're anticipating here is a post-bye rookie bump. Typically, out of the bye weeks, rookies get a little bit more love. This is still a stash play, in my opinion. I think Kayshon has established himself as a workhorse in the NFL again for the second consecutive season. But Kayshon has a laundry list of lower body injuries. Blake Corum is a third-round draft pick. He is essentially iced Ronnie Rivers at this point. Ronnie Rivers did not play in week 5. This is kind of the usage we expected for him early out of the gates. Wouldn't be shocked if this becomes a 75-25 type of split moving forward after the bye week. And I just want you all to get in front of it before a potential Kayshon injury, or for some reason, if Corum's just really good and it's an Allgeier situation where they just have to play him more. Any thoughts on Corum? I know this has been a big bet for you. You've been betting against Kayshon for the offseason. How are you approaching Corum?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty similar approach as Vidal. I'm a bit higher on Corum personally than Vidal, just given the prospect profile and the draft capital they spent on him. Tacking the Kayshon injuries too. So, but like you can't play him yet. There's no way you can play like Corum unless for whatever reason they come out of the gate and we're looking at like 60-40, but that's just not Sean McVay. He kind of runs his guy into the ground. So yeah, I think like 10, maybe even upwards of 15 if you're the Kayshon owner. Probably makes sense here, but don't go crazy by any means.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too crazy with Corum. It's just another stash play. Corum and Vidal are classic rookie stash plays, hoping you get some production. I think it's also fair to assume that if there were injuries, they would get the lion's share of the opportunities because of injury. Think of we literally just watched it with Tracy. Like these guys could be just Tracy in better offenses or better run games, essentially. And Corum's available in a lot of leagues. He's only owned in 16.2. Vidal's only owned in 6.7. These guys are out there. This guy,
it's going to be cheap.
Yeah, this guy is rostered in a ton of leagues, 36.5. But for some reason, if Tyler Allgeier is out there, I think you got to pick him up. I had to drop him in a league because I had to start somebody because of some injuries and we have short benches and I'm kicking myself. Hopefully I can get him back. But I mean, Allgeier is like borderline playable.
He's good. Yeah.
If you're like running back so thin, but if you had to play him in week 2, week 4, week 5, whatever, like it's better. Like he's better than Tyjae Spears is at this point, and Spears was a 9th round pick. So I think Allgeier is someone, if you own Bijan, have to have him. Like it's like you have to have him because if Bijan gets hurt, he might even score more points than Bijan because there's no Tyler Allgeier behind him, right? It'd just be him. So I feel like this guy's like a must add in my opinion, especially if you're like a team that's 5-1, 6-0. If you're a winner, like Allgeier's the exact type of guy I want at the end of my bench. What do you think, Aidan?
Yeah. My only concern here is I think the role last Sunday was largely in part due to the fact that they were ahead, or not ahead, but they were just running the ball all game. It like if you look at his game logs week over week, like Bijan outcarried him like pretty significantly, really every week up until this one. He actually had more carries this week than Bijan. I think it was 18 to either 15 or 16 split in terms of the carries there. So Tyler Allgeier is really good. It's honestly a little annoying for Bijan owners how much he touches the ball, but he's at the end of the day, like he's just a good running back. Like for real football, it's a great thing to have both of these guys in the backfield. So yeah, he's borderline playable, and if anything happens to Bijan, like you mentioned, this is a bell cow. There's no one else behind him that's really going to challenge him for touches like he's challenging Bijan.
What kills me is he only ran 4% of the routes and somehow got targeted on 25% of his routes, which is kind of crazy. It's crazy. I mean, Bijan still had an epic week 6. That was probably the best game of Bijan's career. So we kind of
great.
We got in front of that
touched
in the
25. Rankings. That was awesome.
This one is more of a stash play again. We called it out last week. I think Isaac Gurrendo needs to be on your radar. 10 for 99. A lot of it on that big run at the end of the game on Thursday night. Running back here for the San Francisco 49ers. Gurrendo is probably not going to get too much run. It looks like Mason's going to play. He was at practice yesterday, for the team's walkthrough against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I feel like Gurrendo is still just kind of a stash play. CMC is probably expected back. I'd say week 10 against Tampa Bay or week 11 against Seattle. That seems to be when they're targeting his return after the bye. I don't know how many usable weeks you're getting out of Gurrendo here I don't know. I mean, with Allgeier, what are you thinking? Like 15%, 10% of your fab? If you're a Bijan
I'd
owner,
do like
maybe
10,
going up a little.
like 10,
Okay.
like 10.
Gurrendo, I'm thinking like 0 to 3%. This is just kind
It's
of
like
a
this.
spot start if Mason doesn't play this week.
Yeah, and I think this is a monitor the Mason situation. Maybe go push upwards of 5 to make sure you get him if you're a Jordan Mason owner as well. As it looks like CMC is still about 2 or 3 weeks out at minimum. Probably post bye would be the
Tampa or
soonest we see
Seattle.
McCaffrey.
Yeah, I'd say Tampa. They're
So
saying early November return, so that gives us that's basically week 10. That's
So if you're a Mason owner though, and you wanted to push upwards of 5 to make sure you got him, like totally okay with that, especially if he somehow re-aggravates it or surprises us and doesn't play. So don't go nuts there.
This one felt like a fever dream. Like
this is fool's gold.
We've been talking about this guy for a while. Like if you've been in the dynasty streets, he kind of has a cult following, and that's Sean Tucker. They love him. I remember all last year it was Rachaad White's getting his lunch taken from Sean Tucker. And then before that, it was Sean Tucker's going to be a 3rd round draft pick, and he goes undrafted because I guess he has a heart issue. He just went off, dude. 14 carries, 136 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 catches on 3 targets with 56 yards and a touchdown. He had 34 fantasy points. I believe he was the RB1 this week, which is just surreal. Still only 22 years old. Former All-American here from Syracuse, Sean Tucker. Big boy. Big boy. Like he's a big man. He looks like Mike Allstott running out there, dude. He's huge.
He can move though.
Yeah.
Mike Allstott. What a throwback. Wow.
I mean, you have Todd Bowles saying they're going to turn this into a 3-headed monster. I think this one's more of like Rachaad White's shares are so done. Like it is so done for Rachaad White.
Yeah. It'd be pretty fun if Rashod wasn't there. Because the Bucky Sean Tucker split was actually pretty awesome in terms of the split between the two of them. But I'd be shocked if he's out snapping Bucky or Rashod once they're both healthy. But what's your take? Like, how do you are you bidding here? Is this something you actually think you can play? Like,
I think you got to pick him up. Bucky's like a 5'8" running back, and Rashod's already hurt. You close your eyes, and there's a situation where it's just Sean Tucker back there, and it's like, whoa.
Dino bros rejoice.
Yeah, I mean, like his stats: 38% of the snaps, 45% of the rush attempts, 27% of the routes, 8% of the targets, a 27% targets per route run. He saw 33% of the short down and distance, 33% of the inside of the 5. Man, like that was pretty sweet usage. Him and Bucky, that would be a pretty sweet running back combo.
That's what I'm saying. I'd love if we could but like Rashod's not going anywhere. Tough matchup this week too. Don't expect another massive showing. They're headed to Baltimore, which is
stout run defense.
That's not ideal. So be cautious here, but it's worth putting on your radar. What he's owned in, I think, less than 5% of leagues, right? Whereas 1% of
this is a speculative stash. I would not get too crazy here.
Yeah, because this is either complete fool's gold, which we see this every year, or it could end up being a total, diamond on the rough here in week 6. But I don't know, man.
All right, we're going to transition here to wide receivers. I agree. I wouldn't get too crazy. And we're going to go for a 2-for-1 or a BOGO, as Mr. Aidan Haller would highlight.
On the menu to start.
And it's Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. Christian Watson is owned in 42% of the leagues, so he could be out there on the wire right now. And Romeo Doubs is owned in 32% of the leagues. They put up very similar stat lines. Doubs, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 49 yards, 2 touchdowns. You had Christian Watson with 4 targets, 3 receptions, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Oh, Dontayvion Wicks, what could have been? I don't know, man. These guys got to be owned, though. The whole Wicks premise remains for these two guys, too. Like, you just want the pass catchers in this offense, man.
Yeah.
That's just how this goes.
I think, the argument we continue to make is, this passing attack makes so much more sense with 3 guys. I think when all 4 are healthy, it's so confusing. But when either Wicks or Watson are out, it's so much clearer how that offense is going to operate. The Jaden Reed role is pretty cemented. The Romeo Doubs role is pretty cemented too. But I think Wicks and Watson have a ton of overlap in terms of their skill set and where they kind of fill in here. So one of them not being in the fold, I think just lifts up everyone in terms of opportunities and, just fantasy upside personally.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Dontayvion Wicks had a 43% targets per route run. He had 19% of the routes and 10% of the targets before he got hurt.
Massive bummer.
We got rug pulled so hard on that. That's just the opposite of that's just like an ice cold run out. Like that's just the worst run out ever for Wicks. I feel like if I had to pick one, I want Doubs.
I want Doubs. Yeah.
I want Doubs.
Jordan Love, that's his favorite target in terms of like stretching the field. Jaden Reed's going to get the MLF touches, obviously, especially the jet sweeps, the screens. But I think game on the line, gotta have it. Ball's going to Doubs. I'd guess almost 10 out of 10 times from Jordan Love.
Yeah, Reed leads the team in targets. Doubs is actually behind Watson in targets. No, they're pretty similar. Bo Melton and Malik Heath getting targets too. You love to see LaFleur just trolling us. He loves to do that. For Doubs and Watson, what, like 15 to 20% on both? Is that how you'd approach it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. If either one of them are there, I think Watson's probably more. I don't know. They're probably both around the same likelihood they're out there. But yeah, I'd say 15 to 20.
I think I'd rather prefer Doubs, but Watson is tantalizing considering his ceiling that he's showing.
Like Watson's got your big plays, which is fun, but Doubs is going to get more targets on a week-to-week basis.
The next BOGO that we have here, because we've done two, is going to be Pop Douglas and, I got to say this right, Kayshon Boutte, the man who had the most bets of all time, the gambling man himself.
Gambling addict.
Pop Douglas, 21 points, 9 targets, 92 yards, and a tug. We love to see that as Pop drafters. And Kayshon Boutte, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 59 yards, 1 touchdown. The reason why we're highlighting Boutte is because after the game, Gerard Mayo basically said, we may need to look elsewhere in terms of the receiving core when it comes to Jalen Polk. And Jalen Polk may have to sit down because he's just been atrocious. I was watching this game because I'm a big Drake Maye guy, and I don't think Jalen Polk is capable of catching the ball. Like, it's Quentin Johnston levels of bad right now when a ball gets thrown his way. Like rookie season, he just can't catch it, Aidan. So
no, I've seen it.
I think this receiving core is consolidating around Pop Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, and Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne comes back his first week from ACL tear, runs 52% of the routes, 7% of the targets. Boutte runs 76% of the routes, 10% of the targets, and then Pop Douglas runs 67% of the routes, but 30% of the targets. Pop Douglas, I honestly think, could headline this entire waiver wire week with Drake Maye.
Yeah, the PPR upside with him is awesome. Just on top of this wide receiver core too, like, why can't we get Javon Baker activated? I don't know. Like, I think we know what Kendrick Bourne is. Jalen Polk's been pretty shaky. Like, you got to think at some point this year we're going to see Javon Baker. The guy is electric, but not to hijack the show from Pop Douglas. I think this is definitely the priority here, especially with how good Drake Maye looked in week 6.
Baker has not run a route since week 2.
Yeah, he hasn't been active since week 3.
Tyquan Thornton didn't run a route last week, so he got iced. KJ Osborne hasn't run a route since week 4, so it looks like it's Bourne, Boutte, Polk, and Douglas. And Polk's going to start to see his snaps go down. Kendrick Bourne's going to take those snaps, in my opinion. So rough run out for Jalen Polk. He has just not played well enough. He's got an opportunity here. 21% of the targets in week 5, 24% of the targets in week 4. I talked about him a ton. I think it's Pop Douglas. That's the guy you want if you want to dip your toes in this.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Patriots passing pool. I would get like 15 to 20% on Pop, and then on
it's Boutte, it's like Scamdell-esque, but probably even a little better. Like, I think he's got a better ADOT and more like complete route tree.
His quarterback's better too.
Way better.
Okay, cannot believe we're here, but Juju Smith-Schuster.
I don't know what to do with him.
Owned in 25% of leagues. Definitely making me look dumb for saying Rashee Rice is really good when he just stepped in and just did the Rashee Rice pretty competently in week 5. Gets the 49ers this next week. Very curious to know how this shakes out after the bye. But Juju's usage in week 5 was ultra. Jesus, Encouraging is the word I would use. 8 targets, 7 receptions, 130 yards. You take a look at the usage, Aidan. 66% of the routes, 28% targets per out run, 24% of the targets, 6.3 ADOT. Just doing his thing. Top 12 finish in week 5. What are you bidding on Juju Smith-Schuster, Aidan?
I don't know. I could go up to 15 maybe. It's just still a lot of question marks in this offense. I think the biggest encouraging thing with Juju is he was in KC just a year ago before them bringing him back. So I think it's really encouraging that he knows the system. I think that brings a level of comfort to not only Mahomes and Andy Reid. So probably should be the go-to wide receiver outside of Travis Kelce going forward in terms of your more standard routes. So I don't know. This offense just confuses me too. It's just I'm really not sure what it's going to look like rest of season with no Rice.
Again, if you had Rashid Rice, why not blow 10 to 15% of your fab? And one of our leagues I had him in. Juju's on the bench. Let's see if it plays out. But if I can get 80% of the Rashid Rice production from Juju, I'm there. Aidan. I'm going to take it every day of the week.
Yeah, you could squint and see it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's literally who Rice got brought in to replace was Juju. They just put him in that role, and he was a better version of it. But I think you have to go pick him up. 10 to 15%. I think Pop's the number one guy, though. Now that I'm doing all this and looking at this, I think Pop is by far the ad of the week. If I had to pick a guy,
I completely agree. Yeah, Pop's my go-to wide receiver here.
I'm going to give you the floor, man. This is your moment. This is your moment. You've had a really good run out for your sleepers. You had Darnell Mooney as a sleeper. You highlighted Rashod Bateman as a sleeper here to start the year. It's not like Bateman's lighting the world on fire. He's cleared 10 plus fantasy points in 3 out of 6 starts, but you have to be super encouraged with how good he's looked whenever he gets targeted. Why are you taking a look here at Rashod Bateman?
Yeah, it's again to your point, it's been super encouraging the last couple of weeks. I think it was a slow start weeks 1 and 2, but yeah, 3 out of 4 weeks in a row going double-digit points is super encouraging. I think he just makes a ton of sense in this passing attack. I think there's, we know who Zay Flowers is. We know who their tight ends are. And then Rashod Bateman is just a good wide receiver, really good at stretching the field, full route tree, involved in the offense. No one, he's definitely the wide receiver too, which is encouraging. I think there's a couple other pieces there. We got Allgeier. There's a couple other guys in there, but Rashod Bateman's clearly the wide receiver too. Lamar Jackson's having an awesome year. I know you said it the other day. It's there's a world where Lamar Jackson wins MVP again. And if that's the case, you want to be the wide receivers out there. So I don't know. I think it's just really encouraging. Doesn't feel like there's a massive ceiling for him, but his week-to-week floor is becoming pretty apparent. 4 or 5 targets a week could fall into a touchdown with how much this offense scores. So probably someone you're only starting in a bye or an injury pinch, but he's not rostered as much as he should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's available. He's only rostered in 8.5% of leagues, so he's basically out there in 90% of leagues you play in.
That's too low.
Bateman, the usage, you have to be pretty encouraged. 93% of the routes, so he's cleared 90% in 3 out of 6 weeks, 80% in 4. His targets per out run only 14%. His target share 16%. In week 5, he has less points. I mean, I think week 5, how did he do in fantasy? Week 5, he had
70 yards, 4 catches.
Yeah, in week 5, he catches a touchdown too.
Oh, sorry, in 5, yeah.
But in week 5, 21% of the targets. He's cleared 20% of the targets twice out of these 6 weeks. I know the bar's low. Right? It's kind of like when you're watching a kid play Little League baseball and he gets a single and you're super juiced because hey, I know how hard he worked to get that single, but Bateman is a really talented player that just for some reason has not gotten targeted in this offense. This offense went from you can't start any of the pass catchers 3 weeks ago to you can start them all. I get that. Look, they're like a Niners type offense where it's you're going to have some down weeks for some of your stars, but when your stars hit, this offense is so loaded. And look, I'm not a big betting man here in California, but if you like MVP odds, I really like Lamar. And I really like Jared Goff. I think those are 2 really solid picks that you can make right now for MVP. I don't think it'll be Mahomes considering the season he's having, but I digress. Go pick up Rashod Bateman. 5 to 10% of your fab, maybe even less, maybe 5%. You do,
5% max.
Because you're a Zay.
No one's bidding on him. You might be bidding against yourself here.
You're a Zay Flowers injury away from having a
huge games.
pretty,
Yeah, huge
pretty,
games.
pretty fun player on your hands.
Oh yeah.
Bub Means. So this guy's kind of a meme because when we were doing all the draft prep last year, remember when I would send you these tweets where it was like the 5 receivers we got highlighted? It was like Malik Neighbors, MHJ, Roma Dudze, Xavier Worthy, Bub Means. It was just like hilarious how many like charts he got put on of like yards per route run or like ADOT or like every time they'd run one of those like infographics that they'd have out there, like he just crushed it on all the R correlation stuff. So I don't really know why this guy was a 6th-round draft pick out of Pitt, but everything he did in college was super encouraging from an efficiency standpoint. And the man comes out in his first career start with Olave hurt and goes 8 targets, 5 receptions, 45 yards, and a tug. Kind of crazy for Bub Means.
Yeah, I think he led the team in targets. Yeah, without looking at it off the top of my head, like he had to have with 8.
I mean, you basically have to go pick this guy up. If Olave is going to be out and Shaheed's going to be out,
he's the wide receiver 1 this week.
They're playing Denver. I don't know what the status of Patrick Surtain, but that defense fell apart without Surtain last week. So you kind of have to pick him up. If you look at the usage too, 70% of the routes, 24% targets per route run, 23% target share, his ADOT's 9 yards, 25% of the air yards, a top 24 fantasy finish for Bub Means. Not memes, means. He's owned in no leagues. I mean, 0% of leagues is rostered in.
Yeah, like go get him. I don't know. I don't think a lot of your league mates are probably bidding on Bub Means, and they should. The top 2 wide receivers in that offense aren't going to play this week.
Go pick up Bub Means. Memes. This is going to be brutal on me. Go pick up Bub Means. Regression to Bub Means.
Regression to Bub Means.
We got to go pick him up. I'm going to go make him my team name somewhere where like my team is not that good. Okay, moving on to quarterbacks here. Every time I watch Justin Herbert play, I think he's putting up a 30 burger because of how good he looks. And I look and see it's only 14 points. That might be one of the more impressive 21 for 34, 240, and a touchdown games I've ever seen out of a quarterback for Justin Herbert.
It looked way better than that.
He's amazing. He's truly amazing.
He's so good. He's so good.
Everything they said about him being really good, but the offense just being not fantasy conducive is coming to fruition here. It is not starting to hit home. The efficiency has not been there. It's just been a weird offense.
That was his best game of the year. That was the best game of the year.
Yep. Hey, he's cleared 10 fantasy points in 4 out of 5, Aidan.
That's so bad for the quarterback position.
I don't know, but you could probably start him against Arizona next week. Arizona's been gettable. This could be a good...
Dude, gettable is generous, bro. They just got fucking diced by Jordan Love.
He's an interesting spot start. Say maybe you've been riding the Caleb wave, or maybe you got Dak. I don't hate the idea of throwing in Herbert.
No, I don't hate it at all.
Next guy I got here.
Just like him.
I mean, I think he might be a fun spot start in his second career game. I know he has to travel to London, which should be interesting for Drake Maye. It's only an 8-hour time change, right? No, what is it? Only 3, right?
No, it's like 4. I think it's 4 or 5 from there because it's 8 from here.
Yeah, that isn't that bad.
No,
it's not amazing. Like, it's definitely a change up, but it's not like whenever the West Coast teams go out to London where it's like, that's brutal.
It's fucked up.
Completes 20 of 33 passes for Drake Maye, 3 touchdowns, 2 INTs, a fumble, 38 rush yards, pretty much everything we expected him to be. Turnovers, but
it was really
big
fun.
plays.
It was really fun.
I do worry him playing behind that offensive line. He just got crunched like 4 or 5 times. You still have to play him. Anyone that's saying don't play him.
The Jaguars are the worst fantasy defense in the league by like a large margin to QBs. Like they're giving up the most points to QBs by like a 4-point gap, which is just pretty crazy. Like 24 points a game. So I think Drake Maye's got an absolute awesome spot this week. It would take some stones, especially in like a 10 or 12 manner, but really good matchup. A couple QBs banged up, 2 startable QBs on bye too.
3 touchdowns in your debut. It's pretty legit.
And they weren't gimmies. The first one to Boutte was awesome. Last one to Pop, nice run after catch. I'm blanking on the second one. I think it was Hunter Henry, right?
He did. He threw one underneath to Hunter Henry. The offense was just functional. Like, the offense could not move the ball with Jacoby Brissett. It was pretty wild to see how much better the offense was. I mean, it's kind of like Captain Obvious here, but it was night and day better. Zach Ertz.
Here. How did you not score Zach Ertz?
The tight end 14 on the year. If he catches that touchdown, he's probably the tight end 10. He continues just to have a pretty viable, bankable role in fantasy right now. I mean, if you look at what he did in week 6, 77% of the routes, 12% of the targets, 12% targets per out run, 11.5 yard ADOT.
Oh man, they are going to murder Carolina.
I feel like he's kind of a must start, man.
They're gonna. I just realized who they're playing. I see Carolina on my players like schedule. I'm just like, hell yeah, just fire them up.
Ben Sinnott does not have a target yet this year.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
I would love to see him get a target. Look, John Bates doesn't have a target. It's literally Zach Ertz. None of these guys get targets outside of Ertz. So, like, this is a decent passing offense. You are not going to get super excited starting Zach Ertz, but I think you got to do it. Like, if you're just streaming tight end, he's a pretty damn good streamer next week.
Yeah, for what like tight end has been this year too, you've got way worse options. It's not as volatile as some of the other guys out there right now.
And you don't have to give up $1 for Zach Ertz of your fab. Like, maybe 3.
You do 0, call it 1, like 1, 2, 3%. Yeah, I agree.
I don't think you have to give up $1 for Herbert either. For Maye, you might have to go like 5%. You might have someone who's excited to bring the rookie on board after the 3 touchdown day.
Here's another fun guy. This
Cade Otton, baby.
A yearly occurrence, baby. We won't quit him.
I mean, he's literally the waiver wire all-star. I mean, the man is literally
got to lead the show in appearances on this program.
He has an underrated, just pretty bankable role in fantasy. Like, if you look at his utilization for Cade Otton, I mean, the man is just 88% of the routes every game. 80% of the routes. He sees 17% of the targets pretty much 4 weeks in a row. I mean, like, you're like, look at this. I mean, like, this is startable. I'm sorry to say this about the tight end position, gentlemen, but this is startable. Cade Otton has had a top 7 finish in week 3, top 7 in week 4, 22 in week 5, 14 in week 6. I've bounced around between Otton and Zach Ertz in one league. I just pick up one, start the other, drop them, pick them back up. I just keep rotating them in and out, and it's basically the same thing. I just wish one of them would start scoring more touchdowns. It's like that. That's why I like Ertz a little bit better and prefer Ertz, is because outside of Terry McLaurin, there's nothing. Where with Tampa Bay, you got Godwin, you got Evans, you got the running backs, right? So it seems a little bit more of a stretch to get Otton into the end zone, considering what they have there. But I don't know, man. Like, do you look at these stats for Otton? It's hard to deny it, man.
Yeah, that passing attack is just so fun too. You know, Baker definitely shares the rock out there on that passing attack.
If we look at overall, like, this is the utilization for all the tight ends here in the league. Ertz is at 9. Ertz has the 9th best role, like, amongst all tight ends in fantasy, which is insane. You got Otton here at 16. Hunter Henry was probably dropped in a lot of leagues. He is definitely worth picking back up now with Drake Maye back.
Oh yeah, Henry is firmly back.
And we should sneak Henry in here. And I think I'd rather have Henry than Ertz and Otton.
Yeah, let me see how owned he is right now.
But I worry about the Patriots offense.
25%.
The Patriots offense is just so butt. Like, even with Drake Maye coming in, like, even though Zach Ertz we know isn't good, that offense is good. We know they're going to shred against bad defenses. Like, we've seen it. Like, it's kind of a bankable thing. I think all 3 of those guys are worthy of pickups. Like, Cole Kmet's out this week. You got to figure out who to stream. I think Ertz is probably the streamer of the week.
I think so, yeah.
Or I guess Colby
especially
Parkinson.
against Carolina.
Colby Parkinson's back after the bye, but Cooper Kupp's back. I think you kind of have to throw out everything.
Keep an eye on Kupp.
But like you kind of have to
It's
throw
just
out
gonna be a
everything.
Kupp funnel.
Yeah, like what does it look like with Kupp? How do they approach it? I don't think they'll take their foot off the gas. That's not really how McVay operates, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But that's it, Aidan. Early waiver wires in the morning. Always appreciate you joining, hanging out. It's always a blast, man.
Easy.
I got to get this up. I got to get the waivers out to the people, man.
People need us. People need us. They need us before tonight when waivers go through.
All right, Aidan, thank you for joining. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Until next time.